Thank you. You're welcome, Minister. I've tabled adjournment today to raise the proposal that's been sent into your department from the South East Fingal Drugs and Alcohol Project. It was sent in January from the Howth Community Council, and basically all they're asking for is to replace a project that was serving this area until the middle of last year. There was a Howth-based project that was providing a service for Howth, Sutton, Baldoyle, Bayside, the broader area. There were difficulties with that project, but since it has closed, there's a big gap in the area, particularly in terms of prevention. The reason this proposal has been put forward is following a lot of research that was carried out by the Community Council about the needs in the area through the local schools, youth services, parents, local residents, asking them about the needs that they see it in our community for drug and alcohol prevention and diversion projects. And that research very clearly showed, and I know that they have sent it into your department with their proposal, it very clearly showed a gap in those services in our area. So that proposal went in January. Since then, the group, the Howth Sutton Community Council, have been finding it very difficult to get a straight answer in terms of what is actually happening with it. All the correspondence, and indeed I wrote to you myself on their behalf earlier, and the letter that the correspondence you sent back to me stated that it's a matter for the Drugs Task Force, but then the Drugs Task Force have said that they've been given a very clear message from your department that they are being funded on an existing services only basis for this year, and that they cannot approve replacement projects. So it seems as if this project and this very worthwhile initiative, and as I said, very well based in terms of research and needs and analysis, the kind of professional initiative that we'd want to see coming forward from any community group, but they haven't been able to get a straight answer as to whether or not it will be funded by the government. As I said, the money was there, money was allocated to this area. The area has now been left without a service. I appreciate that money is tight within your department. I know that you've had to make cuts, which is unfortunate. I think of all the areas that need to be protected, I think drug services is one, because it takes so long to get the right services up and going in areas that have long struggled with drug misuse problems. It takes so long to actually get a service there and get projects up off the ground. I think it's a shame in general that your budget is taking a hit, and that's no reflection on yourself. I think it's more on a broader government priority, because I think that all ministers should see that this area needs to be supported. The amount of money involved is actually relatively small in the broader schemes of things in terms of the finance issues that the state is facing as a whole. So I've tabled this debate today to bring this issue to your attention. I know that you're aware of the proposal, because as I said, it was sent in January. I hope that you can give me positive news today. As I said, it's very well researched. The group involved, the Community Council, are a very professional organisation. They're representative of all the community bodies in the broader community. If anybody is capable of actually getting a project like this off the ground and getting it working for a relatively small sum of money, it is the Community Council. So I hope that you've had a chance to read over their proposal, and that you can give me a positive answer instead of just saying that it's an issue for the Drugs Task Force. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Cahirley. On the 7th of January last, my department received a proposal from the Howth Sutton Community Council for funding to establish a drugs and alcohol prevention project in South East Fingal, which would serve communities in Baldoyle, Bayside, Sutton and Howth. The Council wished to set up a project to address a gap in service provision, as the Senator has outlined, that has arisen as a result of the closure in June 2012 of a community-based drug project serving the Howth Sutton Peninsula. Funding for the latter project was withdrawn by the HSE as a result of deficits in relation to governance, financial control and accountability that emerged during an audit of that project. The need for support within communities around prevention, education for young people and support for families has been identified by Howth Sutton Community Council on the basis of findings from a strategic evaluation of projects conducted by Dublin North East Local Drugs Task Force in late 2011. This evaluation included the former project serving the Howth Sutton Peninsula. Supplementary research undertaken with local schools and community actors in late 2012 also informed the research findings. The key recommendations arising from the research are that a project be developed in partnership with existing community and statutory agencies, which would work with schools, youth and family support groups to develop local strategies for substance misuse education and prevention. The proposal envisages that the project would initially focus on prevention, education and family support, with expansion into client case management to be undertaken in the medium term if resources become available. The cost of the project, which would involve hiring a coordinator and a project worker, is estimated at €79,000 per annum. As the Senator will be aware, drugs task forces play a key role in assessing the nature of the drug problem in their areas and coordinating action at local level so that there is a targeted response to the drug problem in local communities. €29.951 million has been allocated to the Drugs Initiative in 2013, the majority of which contributes to the running of community-based drugs projects supported by local and regional drugs task forces. This includes an allocation of €988,234 to Dublin North East Local Drugs Task Force, which has responsibility for tackling the drug problem in the South East Fingal area. It's a matter for each drugs task force to decide which projects to support based on agreed priorities for their area within the overall budget available to them. The allocation to Dublin North East LDTF was determined on the basis of the community-based drugs projects it recommended for funding in 2013. I have been in contact with Howth Sutton Community Council and have advised them, I want to be clear, I have advised them to submit their proposal to the Dublin North East Local Drugs Task Force for consideration. I've indicated that my department will consider the proposal if it has been recommended by the task force. At this stage, the drugs task forces have been advised of their allocations for 2013. The funding of any additional measures is contingent upon the resources which are available to me for the year. I want to explain that to the House again, that I don't have a discretionary budget. And the way these projects operate is, in general, it's not a question of making an application to the Minister and for the Minister or the Department to look at the project, because this is a project I can see of merit. I can see that. And I agree with the Senator. Absolutely that there's a gap in this particular area, and I know about this area, and I know the need that's there, that she has very carefully and very persuasively outlined to the House. But the fact is, I can't deal with the matter unless it comes in by way of recommendation to the Local Drugs Task Force. So that's what would have to happen, and I have explained that to the Local Drugs Task Force and by way of response to the Howth Sutton Community Council. So I have been clear in that regard. But I have to say, to be absolutely straight with the Senator and with the House, that if we were to seek to try to identify funding, difficult and all as that would be, it would inevitably affect the funding that would then thereafter not be available for other activities, because there's a limited amount of funding that I have available. And I don't think anybody is, the Senator is absolutely right to make the case. She makes the case very well. But the fact is, there is a finite amount of funding. So if I were to, I certainly couldn't reallocate for 2013 unless I took money from somewhere else. And in relation to 2014, next year, we'll have to see how matters are for 2014. But again, there will be a finite amount of resources, I would expect, next year. And the fact that there is a limited amount of resources is of regret to me, particularly in the area, this area where there's such a huge need. But we know why the resources are limited, and we know why the overall what has caused the overall financial situation that we face as a country. And I'm trying to do the best, and the Local Drugs Task Forces are trying to do the best with the funding that's available to them.
Thank you, Minister. Senator.
Minister, I thank you for acknowledging the merit of this proposal and the fact that there is a gap there. I suppose the difficulty is that indeed you have gone back to them and said that they should make a proposal to the Drugs Task Force, but at the same time your department has quite clearly told the Drugs Task Force not to recommend new projects. Well, at least that's my understanding of what I've been told. That they've been told that their funding is on the basis of just existing services and that there is no scope for others. Maybe the implicit suggestion then in that is that if they want to project, because it's not new, so this is purely a restoration, it's not looking for anything new, but that if they want to restore it, they have to cut other projects within the task force area. Obviously that's an impossible situation to put any drugs task force in, because the needs across our whole wider area are so huge. Already been cuts in services, so I think it's impossible situation to say that the only way that they could get approval would be to cut other services in the area. At the end of the day, this is money that was taken out of the pot for the broader Dublin North East Task Force area and taken back nationally, so I think it's only fair that it should at least be back in the pot rather than be taken from other local services. So I think it's an impossible situation for everybody involved. I do think it's a really worthwhile project. I'm glad, I appreciate that you have acknowledged that. I hope that you will look at it again fresh. At this stage we're almost halfway into 2013. If you look at it fresh again at the end of the year, if there is any movement there. And I'd also like to offer you the opportunity, if you have the time, to meet with some of the people involved and hear the case from them directly as well. I know you've already acknowledged the merits of the project, but I think you'd feel more strongly about it as well if you could see the professionalism of the people involved and the potential that this initiative has if it could get off the ground. Thank you.
Minister.
Well, I certainly would be amenable to that in terms of seeing the people involved and seeing the project. But I just want, just so we're absolutely clear, this is not a situation where there's a file on my desk that I haven't actually looked at, in case the impression is given to the House that there's a file that I'm not getting around to looking at a particular proposal. That is not the case. And we have not said to the Local Drugs Task Force not to recommend new projects, but we have said, again to be straight, and the Senator is right, she picks it up absolutely correctly, we have said that, that the funding that the Local Drugs Task Force have this year is the funding that they have this year. Now, as for 2014, again, of course, 2014 is a new year, and we can look. Everything will be looked at afresh. But there will still be a finite amount of resources. But I know the history of what's happened here, and I have to have regard to that. And I know people are really seriously, the Local Drugs Task Force now has a new chairman and a new coordinator. And I think that's. I'm not saying anything about anybody who went before, but I think that's really very helpful. They're very well organised, they're very good people, and we'll do everything we can to assist. But it isn't a question of a sort of a dilatory approach on my part or the department's part. This is the way we do it. We do it through the Local Drugs Task Force.
Thank you, Minister, for the clarity.